Hi, this is Mairghread Scott, the first female writer in Transformers Comics, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Welcome to The Pullbags Origins Episodes. Join TFG1 Mike as he grills this week's guest on just how they got into reading comics and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy The Pullbag.
What's the matter, Screamy? Can't pick on someone your own size?
What do you know? It does fetch.
Scrub!
Hello and welcome to The Pullbag. This is a very special Origins episode. It's gonna kind of serve as an interview as well. I don't know how we're going to market this at this point. I am, of course, your host, TFG and Mike, and we've had a few hiccups in the Pullbag schedule and how I want to get things done. We're supposed to be coming up on episode 89 in two giant-size episodes. 90 and 91 and, or is it, no, 89 and 90 and then 90 and 90, no, I screwed that up. 89 and 90 and 91 and 92 are supposed to be two giant-sized episodes coming up. I have no idea what's going to be putting into them. Originally it was going to be countdowns, but for now, it's an Origins episode. For those of you that don't know what the Origins episodes are, first of all, go back and listen to any of the ones I've done previously. Second of all, it's myself getting together with friends, with people I know, people I'm interested in finding out how they get into comic reading. And this time we have Windblade Returns. Oh, I'm sorry, Mairghread Scott. Hello.
Hi.
And we've brought along her husband, Jason Enright, who actually I started following on Twitter shortly after he started teasing me about Beast Hunters, Predacons Rising last year. Because you guys are an evil team when it comes to Twitter.
Yeah. He's the evil part. I'm the team part.
So this is going to work like any other Origins episode. Jason, let's start with you. Was there a parent, a relative, a friend, who was it that said, here, kid, here's a comic, go bother me? And what comic was it? You know, don't bother me, go away. What comic was it when you first, as a kid?
So I was really into the X-Men animated series as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I believe the very first comic I ever got was X-Men #1, the Jim Lee, like with the fold-out the gatefold cover with like Cyclops and Wolverine and everybody on it. And I believe my dad got that for me at a flea market. Like it was a comic that was a few years old, and because like I just would not shut up about the X-Men. And then from there, I was one of those kids who like didn't have a regular place to go to get comics, so it was like you'd see them on a spinner rack at the supermarket or at a bookstore, and every once in a while I would pick up something, and it was always like you had no idea what was going on or where the story was, but it was pretty much for me in the early days kind of always X-Men or X-Men related, until I was like a teenager and got my own car and started being able to like search out comic shops. But yeah, so a good mix of both my parents buying me comics whenever I would find them on a spinner rack sort of got me started.
Who is your favorite X character?
Cyclops.
Really? You like Emo Boy? Really?
Emo Boy? Are you talking about Wolverine?
No, Cyclops is the emo one.
No.
Gene, why won't you be with me?
He's a man who's devoted to the love of his life. That's so terrible. What are we, 15 and we're afraid of cooties?
Oh my
He
gosh.
probably is in most incarnations.
No, you see, there's actually a really interesting thing. They found that people who were introduced to the X-Men prior to the 90s are fans of Cyclops, and people who were introduced to X-Men later, when they started shifting it to make the book more about Wolverine, and they turned Cyclops into essentially the guy who enforces the rules, that they tend to not like Cyclops as much. Like, you can see a very definitive line in sort of when people were introduced to the X-Men as to which side of the Cyclops line they're on. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. I grew up with the '92 series, but it just even in that, going back and looking at that cartoon.
Oh yeah, they totally screw up Cyclops. Like, they don't do a good job of it at all.
And you'd think that they would, because I mean, Claremont was on that series.
Yeah, but pretty much the best X-Men stories are from like the '70s and '80s. And they you go back and read those, and Cyclops is the man. And it's really interesting because until like later in the '90s, he really is the main character. And then what's really interesting is they had always planned to retire him. Like, after Jean died, he was supposed to sort of quit and go away and retire. And the idea was supposed to be that the promise of the X-Men is that you could fight for a while and then go live a normal life. But then, because of editorial, because it's comics and you can't ever give anyone a happy ending, they kept pulling him back in. And over time, I feel like they kind of slowly ruined his character. Because I don't think he works as like a lifer, you know?
What were you going to say, Mairghread?
Oh, nothing. He just cut out for a minute, so I was like...
Oh, okay. No, he's still here. All right, what about you, Mairghread? I don't remember. It was earlier was last year we did the interview with you, I think, sometime last year. I forget when it was. It was during the time when Prime was still fresh, so... what about you, growing up and reading comics? How did you get into it?
I actually got into comics, comic books specifically through Sailor Moon. Manga was my first introduction to comics, and because, I mean, quite frankly, the Western comics weren't super accepting of women at the time. And like Jason, I also had the thing where I loved 90s X-Men, and I went to go find a 90s X-Men comic, and it's like issue 376, and I had no idea what was going on, and of course they're missing issue 375, and like I thought they come out every Wednesday. Why is all the other X books out, but this one isn't out? Like, what? I couldn't even deal with it. So I read manga for a really long time, and then Jason finally got me to make the jump to Western comics. So thanks, hon.
Yeah. And really, we should thank Green Brain.
Yes.
Green
Brain Comics in
younger,
Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah, when we were younger, this couple opened up a comic book store in our hometown, and I think there were other comic book stores in the area before then, but that was the really first, like, very friendly one. And they would do really big, like, free comic book day celebrations and stuff like that. And that's where I had my first pull list, and I feel like that was really integral to both of us getting into, like, regular monthly comics.
Yeah, you had a pull list there. I had a pull list there. My mom has a pull list there now. Like, they're a really great store. But yeah, I think my first Western comic actually was an IDW comic called Lore, that actually sort of like went on like a years-long hiatus. So I never got to read the ending. So I finally I think like my last convention, IDW put out the like Lore, like their big giant editions, you know, the complete edition, and I saw it, and I'm just like wandering over to John like, oh my gosh, this was my first real comic that I loved. I never got to read the ending.
And I haven't.
So I weaseled a copy out of IDW. But I did that, and the first comic cover I can remember when I'd already been reading comics for a long time, but like by the time I was like, this is my thing, was one of Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman comics. And it was the one where I just moved to New York, and it was the one where I think it was an anniversary cover, and she's leaping off a taxi. or like flying above a taxi. And I was like, that's it. Like,
Awesome. All right, so as you guys are growing up, the teen slash young adult years, what were you reading back then, Mairghread?
very much, I was reading a ton of Sailor Moon, much to the chagrin of my family. Because my mom loved buying us books. Like, that was the rule, is that there was always money for books. Like,
Right.
but she hated manga because, like, we would buy it, and then, like, by the time you get home, you're done with it. And it's like, I just paid $8 for that. Like, but as far as, like, superheroes goes, I was watching a lot of, like, Transformers Beast Wars, Batman the Animated Series, 90s X-Men. Also was a huge 90s X-Men fan. Man, there was a lot of fights on the playground over 90s X-Men.
Yeah.
Like, who got to be who? Like, that was like a blood sport. Like,
No, the blood sport for me was in between kindergarten and third grade. Who got to be Optimus Prime and who got stuck being a Sharkticon because they had those stupid plugs on their tails. Because everybody thought the Sharkticons were like, ew, that's the cold virus. You don't want to be a bug. I don't know. It was really weird back in the 80s.
yeah, ours was always all the women fighting over who didn't have to be Jean Grey. Because she couldn't do anything until she needed to do something, and then she could do it, and then she'd pass out. And you were like, what the heck? Yeah, no, literally, I remember, like, getting stuck being Jean Grey, and someone was like, well, you have to pass out now. Like, and I'm like, I'm not just gonna pass out.
You're like,
yeah,
no,
no,
I'm
you
gonna
gotta pass
go
out.
full Phoenix and kill you all.
God,
Yeah, that was the revenge. When they finally did the Phoenix, then
Yep.
it was like, yeah, eat it. I'm Jean Grey now.
Yeah, you said she always have to pass out. That reminds me of He-Man and She-Ra's Secret of the Sword, and when she faints to when Adora faints to basically fool Webstore and Cobra Khan, and Skeletor's in the background says, just like a woman. It's just so hilarious. Oh god, my throat isn't that great today to do Skeletor. But what about you, Jason? What were you reading as a teenager slash young adult?
Well, in the early 2000s, they did the Ultimate lines, and that was really huge for me because, like we were talking about, you'd have the problem where you'd go in and you'd want to read X-Men or you'd want to read Avengers, and there was like 400 issues. So the Ultimate lines were really great because they were a new jumping on point. You could start at number 1, and that was when I first started reading things monthly because I was reading Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Avenger, or I guess it was called Ultimates, and then Ultimate X-Men. I still remember really enjoying Ultimate X-Men. Was probably really cool until they like killed half the team in Ultimatum. But yeah, so yeah, that was pretty influential in my teen years. I think around that time too, like Kingdom Come came out. I remember that being really big.
Oh, you were so about Kingdom Come.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I don't know if you knew this, but we were dating each other in high school, so we knew each other in our teen years.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and there was a great series by Straczynski called Rising Stars that was really good, and I remember that was like the guy at the comic shop, Dan, was like, I think you'll really like this, and so he started pulling me the issues. And that was really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Work affiliations aside, as a comic reader, the age-old question is Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
So.
Yeah, Marvel.
Wow.
Yeah. No question. I mean, there are some things, like, I'm a big Superman fan.
And I'm a big Wonder Woman fan.
Yeah, but both of those characters, they very rarely do well. So it's kind of hard to, like, really get behind them. So.
What about the fact that they're married now?
I haven't read a DC comic Actually, we just read Gotham Academy. That was the first DC comic I've read in, like, 3 years.
I don't think we want. If you guys want to gush about that, fine. But I don't think I can talk about that one.
Gotham Academy? Oh, it was.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, so.
The way that I've described it is, it's what if Harry Potter took place in the U.S. instead of the U.K. That's the way I've described it in several tweets and Facebook posts, and I think I have to at least check out the second issue to see if it gets any better for me, but after the first issue, it was just one of those things where...
Well, Harry Potter made Warner Brothers, like, billions of dollars.
Oh, okay,
so I
yeah.
think that they're onto something there. I think if DC was smart, they would start making all of their comics for 14-year-old girls. Because 14-year-old girls are the largest growing comics readership right now. And if they want to make money, that's the target they should go after.
Yeah, I'll say this about Gotham Academy: it's not. It's obviously, as you said, targeted at that that age group, and I'm all for having fun in comics, but there were just too many, like, Bruce Wayne is just kind of there. There's nothing really... There wasn't enough explanation of the characters for me in the first issue. So like I said, I'll check out the second one, but if it doesn't impress me by then, I have other comics that I'm more interested in reading and would rather spend my money on. I will say that I'm really interested to see what they do with Arkham Manor. Putting Arkham Asylum in Wayne Manor later this month, that's going to be interesting for me. All right, so I went the Marvel route. Overall, Mairghread, who is your favorite Marvel hero and villain?
Oh gosh, that's not even fair.
This is the easiest question ever.
My favorite Marvel villain right now is... I have a weird love for Madame Mask. Like, I have a lot of, like, personal backstory, like my own headcanon with Madame Mask. I always wish they do more with her. I think she's a really neat concept for a villain. In terms of a hero... probably right now would be Miles Morales. Like, I really like him, and I really feel like him and Ms. Marvel are just a real breath of fresh air, like getting back to the actual teenage superhero, and that real wish fulfillment and that great combination of, like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, like, and, like, superhero-ness. So I've been really enjoying them.
What about you, Jason? You said this is an easy question.
Yeah.
You already mentioned Cyclops.
And Magneto are the hero and villain, the greatest characters in the Marvel Universe.
Although Magneto's kind of an anti-hero now, so you gotta pick a new villain.
I don't know, he's still murdering people left and right, so I don't see how that's not villainous. But yeah, no, Cyclops and Magneto. Although I gotta say, Ms. Marvel is probably the best comic being created right now. I love that book.
Except your wife.
I don't know.
Well, I did say outside of stuff that is being worked on, so I was trying to, like,
Mairghread,
we can get it.
You and Sarah are great, but you're not topping Miss Marvel right now.
Wow.
Oh.
My husband just talked himself onto the couch.
I was gonna say, man, that doghouse looks pretty full right now.
Yeah.
No, you're probably
close,
right there.
They're close.
All right, outside of Transformers, what other IDW titles are you guys reading right now?
Oh, I started reading Little Nemo, which is, the art is just gorgeous. It's really, really pretty.
I'm pulling up our pull list because I'm having trouble remembering all the things on it.
Yeah, what else are we reading from?
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
So we're reading Wild Blue Yonder. That was good.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's on hiatus right now.
Yeah.
And then I'm excited for Edward
books.
Scissorhands is coming up soon. That's gonna.
Oh yeah, that looks really great.
And,
I'm excited
and
for that.
Dungeons and Dragons, which Sarah's doing the covers for. That's on our pull list. Both of those start this month, so I don't know if those count.
We are huge D&D nerds, so they totally had us there.
I was really into the last iteration of GI Joe, but I haven't picked up the new one. I don't know if it already started or it's starting really soon. But I'll probably check that out. I'll see if they have it at New York Comic Con this week.
Yeah, I fell off the GI Joe bandwagon when I heard they were going to reboot it. So
Yeah, it kind of stinks sometimes when they announce they're going to do a reboot and the old series is still going on, and you're like, should I keep reading?
Yeah,
like you're gonna do a new #1 in 6 months. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I really like a lot of the stuff that Sarah Gatos is doing with like a lot of the kid properties. They're doing some really neat stuff with like they got a bunch of the Cartoon Network properties, and they're doing this big crossover thing right now called Super Secret Crisis War.
Yeah.
Which is a great jab at DC.
Infinite Crisis. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's been really cute. And Jim Zub's Samurai Jack comic is really good.
Yeah, that's surprisingly good. And I'm really, obviously we're not the target audience of those, but it's really, really nice to have kids comics because it's so hard when you meet fans and they have kids and it's like, well, what can my kid read? And it's like, oh, not much.
I'm not the target audience of those, but I still love them. Like, I get so bored of like dark and gritty and gruesome all the time. I love all ages comics. Like, yeah.
What I don't like about all ages comics is specifically one of the big two. They constantly start them and then just
yank them.
Say,
well, there's no commitment to them, and like it stinks when the only real like true all ages comics at Marvel or DC are the ones that are like tie-ins their cartoon shows, but then they don't feel like really committed to them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say that IDW is doing. So far, I've had one good all ages series and one that I just didn't think that it was. I wanted it to be something different. The good one was when they did the Rocky and Bullwinkle 4-issue miniseries. That was awesome. We just released our episode on the Dexter's Lab 4-issue miniseries. Don't get me wrong. I was 17, 18, somewhere around there or I was probably, I forget when Dexter's Lab came out. It was a while ago, but I remember watching the cartoon as a teenager or whatever else, and I remember liking certain parts of it, and I was hoping that the Dexter's Lab miniseries would have been something different than what it was. I was hoping it would be more focused on Dexter versus Mandark than just another lesson of Dexter needing Dee Dee, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, the other all ages comics that I have read in the past are like Beware the Batman and Scooby-Doo Team Up and that kind of stuff. Scooby-Doo Team Up I stopped reading because I just don't care about the team ups that they're doing right now.
Yeah, that could be the tough thing with like a team up book or a crossover book is like if you don't like who they're crossing over with, you're kind of
Yeah.
Have you been reading Lumberjanes? We were reading Lumberjanes for a while. That was really interesting.
Awesome. That's from Boom. Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I haven't.
It's sort of like Welcome to Night Vale meets the Girl Scouts.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's
or like meets. Actually, I think I would almost describe it as Welcome to Night Vale meets Camp Laszlo.
Yeah, it's this summer camp that is like being embroiled in all this weird supernatural stuff. But what's great is that the girls are just kind of like, yeah, sure, we'll fight werewolves, whatevs. Like, and then it's craft time. Like,
and they actually put like little activities and things in the comics. Like the comic, each one has like a playlist on the back or has like a little maze. It encourages kids to interact with the physical comic book, to cut out a mask or to draw in it. And right. I think that's really smart and really important because I feel like, we don't collect comics. We read comics and then we donate them. Like, there are very few comics that we actually hold on to. And I just feel like the more we can get people to see comics and just to let children see comics as, like, something that you can interact with and that are kind of disposable. Like, they're not precious and sacred and you have to approach them from one way. Like, the better off we are.
Yeah.
You know?
We love cutting panels out of comics. That's like,
yes.
I feel like people freak out when they see us do that, but we do that all the time. And we'll like put them on our desk. Yeah.
That's
yeah, there's a great thing. There's a great scene in Miles. I forgot if it was Ultimate Spider-Man or the new Ultimates.
I
think it was the new Ultimates.
Captain America special in Ultimates, and where
Tony's just drunk at Cap's funeral.
Yeah, he's giving the eulogy at Cap's funeral, and he's got a martini in his hand, and he's like clearly kind of drunk.
No, it's even better. It's a Cosmo, and like there's a couple panels I had to do out of that, which especially out of context are just like, oh my god, Tony, you are so bad at this. You should not be advising future generations.
What do you guys think of the whole Marvel Superior line?
What is that?
They took when Amazing quote unquote ended for now. When Amazing 700 came out, they switched to Superior Spider-Man. And now coming up, I've learned that they're also going to be doing a Superior Iron Man, which supposedly is spitting out of the events of Avengers X-Men Access.
I don't know. Our Spider-Man is Miles. We don't read the regular Spider-Man.
I was reading Superior, and it was really interesting, but it got like weirdly rapey on like a number of levels.
Yeah.
And it just sort of became too uncomfortable for me.
That's what happens when you have the mind of like an 80-year-old Doc Ock in Spider-Man's body.
Yeah, well, not just that, but like, because I tried to pick it up again when Peter came back, but then it's like, oh my god, I have a kind of wife. Like, what? Like, it just became really icky.
Yeah.
Which I know is not the most mature response, and clearly that's a really interesting thing to explore, and I totally recommend that. And I like other books that do other things like that. Like, I loved Bedlam, and it just there's something about Peter Parker that to have that happen to him did not click for me as a fan. But
see, I thought Superior was refreshing because I've said this many, many times in the 2.5, 3 years that I've done this podcast that there's only so many times where I can see, 616 universe Peter Parker fight Doc Ock or fight Green Goblin. There's only so many situations you can see him fight those characters. And I thought doing Superior with creating this whole other bag of worms was so interesting.
And especially
I'm actually really excited about these changes they're coming up because, I feel like I've read every potential Steve Rogers Captain America book. Every potential matchup and team up I can think of. So I like the idea of replacing him. If it was up to me, I would replace every character that was introduced in the 60s in Marvel with characters introduced in the 70s and 80s, and I would slowly start to phase out every 10 years, just phase out older characters and replace them with
not even in just
characters.
Marvel, although I love Kate Bishop as Hawkeye.
Yeah, Kate Bishop's a much more interesting Hawkeye than Clint Barton at this point.
But my favorite Batman was still Dick Bats. When Dick Grayson was Batman, Black Mirror is one of the best Batman graphic novels, and it was so refreshing, and I loved Dick Grayson as Batman.
Yeah.
And I know why they don't do it. I get it from a business standpoint, but it is really interesting because I feel like you're starting to have a weird challenge where by keeping the same characters around for so long, they're essentially growing out of their core conflict. The reason why I like Miles Morales is that, and they haven't done this for a while, I really love Dan Slott's Spider-Man because he finally sort of had his shit together. And for a long time, I couldn't read Spider-Man because, it's one thing for Miles Morales, 13, 14-year-old kid not to have his shit together. But it was another thing when, Peter Parker was, almost Peter Parker was like 30 and like still like couldn't hold down a job, and it was like, you still
Yeah.
don't have this figured out. Like, it stopped being. It's sort of like when they made Rent the movie, and it's like everyone's 30, and it's like maybe you people should just pay your rent because it's not happening at this point. Like,
Yeah. You're not 19-year-old bohemians anymore.
yeah, now you're just weird.
And the only so far, and this is going to surprise a lot of the listeners because everyone that's been listening to this show knows I'm a huge Dick Grayson Nightwing fan, and damn you to Dildo for killing him, jerk. But the only Dick Grayson as Batman story I've read to this point is Gates of Gotham. I want to read more, but Gates of Gotham was awesome.
Go get the
It was.
trade collection called Batman the Black Mirror. That's
Okay.
it's Scott Snyder, Francesco Francavilla, and Jock. And like, because they do a thing where they alternate on Francavilla's issues, it's following Dick more, and on Jock's issue, it's following Commissioner Gordon more, as they're trying to solve the same mystery, but coming at it from different angles. And it's a really interesting story, and it's got this really interesting theme of the idea that like of Gotham being this black mirror that sort of shows you the worst of yourself, and you either sort of succumb to it or overcome it. And the idea being that like characters like Joker and Riddler and all those people succumbed to it, and people like Batman overcame it. You know.
Yeah. Plus, you start to really see. I felt like that's where you first started to see some of the really cool things that Snyder did, in terms of like interacting with the art and the page layout. I really felt like that's where you first started to see things that, like in Court of Owls, where they did Batman trapped in the maze, and it's rotating so that if you follow the rotation, you are also trapped in the maze.
Right.
And I felt like you start to see the beginnings of that playfulness. And that was actually something that really, really inspired me. Like that and the Young Avengers run that Guillen did.
McKelvey and
Guillen, where they had like there was like a Novar fight scene where they literally diagrammed the room and drew like 7 Novars and like labeled it like almost like a catalog page. And that really was something that inspired me when I was working on Windblade, just to see what new ways can we push the art and the writing's interaction. Like, how can we push a physical comic book? I think that's sort of what gave us the idea for Metroplex's voice. Like, having Metroplex be essentially talking, like, all the time on, like, 7 different levels.
Yeah. I remember when when myself, Amy, Nicole, and Heather teamed up to do the Underbase pullback crossover for Windblade's first series. I remember the first recording, and as soon as Chromia said, as soon as Windblade said, "I'm gonna tell him you said that," she's like, "No, don't!" And I'm like, I can no longer hear Ironhide unless it's "Thanks for noticing me." Ironhide is essentially Eeyore. You turned Ironhide into a Winnie the Pooh character.
Ironhide has some cool stuff coming up, if I remember correctly.
Stop spoiling things. No, yeah, we did. We do build up on Ironhide a little bit in upcoming issues. Yeah, I know. I actually really wanted to spend more time with Ironhide. That's like the one sad thing about Windblade. As much as I loved everything about Windblade, it's like when you're doing a book focused on one character, you can't sort of get lost in the other characters. But it's like you just want to spend more time with them, like. Just want to hang out with Ironhide more.
It was a Windblade Chromia book that like yearned to be a TV series book.
Yeah. By the way, I'm really sorry. I heard your guys' like last review. Everyone's always mad about issue 4, and I'm sorry.
I honestly don't.
People they were going to be angry about issue 4.
I honestly don't remember what we were angry about. I assume it was the fact that it was Chromia all along.
Yeah, everyone. That whole month, I kept getting people like, "How could you do this?"
If it had been like, honestly, if it had been somebody like RC or anybody else, I probably would have been more like Chromia. To me, she's one of four of the female Autobots. She's, one of Elita One's crew along with Firestar and Moonracer. I mean, you did great flushing her character out and giving her more depth than just another female Autobot, but I was really expecting something other than it was Chromia all along. I don't know what I was expecting out of it, but I don't remember me being that mad. I'm sure.
I think it was
Yeah,
more the other people. But yeah, no one was
yeah,
expecting it. That was the funny thing. I was so
yeah.
worried, especially by issue 3, that like everyone was gonna know. Like, oh yeah, clearly it's Chromia. I'm like, we set this up way too much. We tipped our hand, and like no one figured it out. Like one dude on like one of the message boards did, and
Yeah.
then proceeded to talk himself out of it.
That's how good your writing is, that you can have people talk themselves out of their own opinions. um,
A
yeah,
lot of
no,
people were convinced it was going to be Ironhide.
Yes, yeah, which I liked. I liked the idea of Ironhide, like, sort of went to like some weird nihilistic place. It was like, since there's no my future, there's no any future now. Like,
yeah. Ironhide's biggest claim in IDW: I saw the future, and now it ain't happening. Oh man, no, I, I think what I think I was expecting some sort of comedy thing, and really it's all Sarah's fault, honestly. Uh, Sarah did a cover for Windblade #3. I think it's the regular cover, uh, which it's the one where she's got the blood going down her face,
yeah, she's
and
crying blood. Yeah.
yeah. As soon as I saw that in solicits, I'm like, "Hey, it's Lydia from Beetlejuice. Where's Michael Keaton when you really need him?" I really thought it was Lydia from Beetlejuice when I saw the cover in solicits. Like, oh, that's so awesome. All right, Jason, what are you currently reading? What are you currently paying attention to?
Um, we read a lot of stuff. So I've actually been really getting into this new Fire and Stone series
Hmm.
that Dark Horse is doing. It's Prometheus, Aliens, Predators, and Aliens versus Predator.
Hmm.
And it's really cool. It's set between Prometheus and the first Alien movie, and it each one is its own series, but then they have elements that tie together. But they've put together like a really good writing team and really good art team, and it's really awesome. And that's been really cool. And then I'm a big fan of Rat Queens over at Image, which is
Hmm.
essentially
Oh, I
a,
love Rat Queens.
a D&D party of like four 20-something-year-old women, and the idea of like if you really were like a adventuring party and you just sort of like came out of a dungeon with 10,000 gold and like no job to have to go to in the morning, you would not be like nice, upstanding, noble people. You would be like drunk and disorderly and
Yeah,
picking
you are
bar
people that have
fights.
literally chosen to kill for money.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. And so it's just really interesting. It's about these four women and getting into all sorts of trouble and some of their past discretions catching up with them. But yeah, no, it's really cool. It's by Curtis Weeb and Rock Upchurch. It's really good. Um, Over at Marvel, I really like Captain Marvel, and I'm really enjoying the current X-Men run. Although it's interesting, so there's Uncanny and All New X-Men, and
Uh-huh.
it fluctuates from time to time which one I like more, because they're both really good. It's really nice to have the original X-Men back, and like
no,
they
it's not.
I like it. I like it because they're making them characters. Like
I mean, it's an interesting character thing, but it's like, first of all, Beast is a tool. He's
Beast
just
is
the
a tool.
tooliest
Nobody likes
tool
Beast.
that
Yeah.
ever tooled. And like, it's like, I don't know. It's like we have other interesting relationships we could be going to, like
I
not
just
dealing with.
missed Jean Grey, and Jean's back, and she's really cool. And I like Kitty being their professor. like Professor K is really fun. But yeah, and then probably over at Boom they have this great book called Suicide Risk that Mairghread and I are obsessed with, which is just awesome.
I am kind of going. See, you guys mentioned Dick Grayson as Batman, and the way I've always looked at Bruce Wayne as Batman, like, he's the legend. He's the one you want to live up to.
So boring.
And, okay, well, yeah, but here's the thing. Bruce Wayne is the legend. No one person is ever going to attain or become Bruce Wayne Batman. But Dick Grayson, whether it's Robin, Nightwing, or Batman, he's DC's everyman character. And when DC and the editorial took him and said, hey, look, we're just waiting to give him an eye patch and make him the Nick Fury of the DC universe, I'm like, yep, I'm out. Once they killed Nightwing is when I'm like really turning my back on DC. Now Gale left the book on Batgirl, so they're taking, which I'm all for Batgirl being brighter and happier and everything else. I just, from seeing the preview and everything else for issue 35, I don't like the art style. I can already say I don't like the art style just from seeing the preview. And she looks like she's going to be, even though I've talked to the writers on Twitter and asked them how old she is, they said she's 21. In the art style,
Really?
she looks like she's 4. Yeah.
She does look like I would have thought she was 14. Like...
That's exactly what I said. Because I asked them, I said, how old is Barbara going to be? They told me on Twitter, in Gale's run, she's 21, and that's what she's going to be in our run. She doesn't look like a 21-year-old at all. She looks like she's 14. So I'm going to give Batgirl 1 or 2 more issues, and if by issue 36 it doesn't grab me, I'm dropping the title. Because honestly, without Gale writing it, it's
honestly,
lost.
The new Batgirl is the only DC book we're probably going to be reading.
Wow.
Yeah, like
with
we
them
have
canceling Batman Beyond, yeah.
We have nothing on our DC list except Batgirl and Gotham Academy. They're the only books that have interested me in years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get that DC is, they have a lot of turnover, which makes it a little hard to, like, tonally sort of maintain characters, and this insistence on sort of this very consistent art style. It makes it a little like when New 52 came out, like we read a bunch of like Animal Man and things like that, and I just want my books to be a little more visually diverse and a little more diverse in terms of story type. And I feel like that's not necessarily where DC's headed. I mean, they kind of keep putting toes into that water, and that's interesting. But, and in all honesty, like, they're not really, it doesn't seem like the company is super interested in going after my personal demographic.
Right.
Like with the whole, like, bikini thing and, like, like Wonder Woman getting a second book that's her dating Superman. Like, it just doesn't seem like we're the types of readers that DC is looking to court right now. So
and for me, the only new DC book I already said I'm interested in is Arkham Manor. But right now, I was gonna pick Batman back up with this new Endgame arc, but with the price being $4.99 for issue 35, I'm sorry,
that's steep.
Digital, well, because it's a double issue or something or other.
Yeah, but is it really a double issue? Or do they just throw a bunch of nonsense in the back and then?
I don't know. All as I know is I'm still on Batman Eternal for that. I'm waiting for that to kind of wrap up and end. Batman Beyond 2.0 is got canceled, so that's ending in November. So yeah, I'm pretty much at this point. I'm reading Cowl from Image, which. You can't say, no one should ever say read Cowl for, have your kids read Cowl, because I think the second issue, this is not a spoiler for the plot, but the second issue of the book, because there are 5 issues in, the second issue of the book, second or third issue, I think, one of the police officers is fighting with a criminal over a gun. and the gun goes off in the guy's pants. Quite literally. I have the screen cap of this. But I'm really liking Cowl. It's by Kyle Higgins and Alex Siegel. It's based off of Kyle's short film, The League. It's really, really cool. What would happen if there was a superheroes labor union in 1960s Chicago? So that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, outside of Batgirl and Batman Eternal, those are the only two DC books I'm getting right now. Like I said, I'm looking forward to Arkham Manor. I those are the only two main DC core titles. I do have their licensed title for Masters of the Universe, which that's going to be changing come December. And then the rest of it is IDW stuff, Turtles and Transformers. So, Turtles is awesome. I don't know if you guys are Ninja Turtle fans, but oh man, what they've done with that series. He is.
I don't know. I haven't really been following it. A lot of my friends tell me this current run is really good, but it's just one of those things of like going back and finding the trades and getting started and all that, you know.
And just going to Comixology, they have them all.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're all right, well, yeah, I don't know. All right, so are you guys pro print or pro digital?
Print.
We're pro anything. I think what I really like, what I really prefer is the idea that I buy my comics in print, and then when I can't get a hold of them in print, I buy them digitally. So it's like if I'm starting a new line and it's like, oh, you're out of issue 2, then I buy issue 2 digitally. So digital is sort of my backup, stopgap for print.
I mean, I appreciate digital because, like, for example, with Windblade, there were a lot of people who didn't know sort of how to get them from a comic shop, or a lot of people who went to a comic shop and found them sold out. So I like that digital created this really nice sort of no barrier, no gateway way for people to get the book.
Right.
I think that's really great, and I think that's why you're seeing such growth, like in digital, and you're seeing new demographics of comic readers find comics through digital. But for me personally, I really like going to our shop and meeting seeing our guy Judd at Blast Off Comics, and
Blast Off Comics, really great place, very in North Hollywood.
And like it's Wednesday and everybody's there and everybody's debating like the latest comic thing, and it's just fun. It's a nice community experience that I worry sometimes like there's not enough of, for comics readers. But no, digital's great. Like currently I'm reading that Sensation Comics featuring Wonder Woman. I actually subscribe, so like every Thursday morning I wake up and I have a new Wonder Woman comic on my Kindle, and that's been really fun. I really like that, and it's just I think that's a neat business model that they should explore more. The idea of doing these like little 12-page weekly comics is really fun, I think.
See, I think for me what it is, and I've said this before on the show, but haven't said this to you guys, is I was getting a lot of print issues because I started reading comics full time when Death of the Family was going on over at DC, so 2 years ago, I was getting a lot of print. And I thought at first that digital was just, you have to have Kindle, iDevice, whatever, and I realized, hey, no, I can just go on their website and do it that way.
Yeah, you can read it right on your computer.
Right on your computer, and that's all well and good. And honestly, for me at this point, for me to actually get the story without, and this is just, I guess, the way I am with everything I do in my everyday life, is I found that every time I would go to sit down and read a comic, I would, even if it was just a 40-page comic, I would end up either falling asleep in the chair or something, just something would distract me from reading the book. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm sitting here in front of my computer and Comixology has this amazing guided view technology which takes you panel by panel, absolutely awesome. Cannot say enough good things about that technology.
I actually highly recommend, whenever people ask me about learning to write comics, I think guided view is just a phenomenal learning tool as a writer to how to beat out your panels, to be able to see how are you breaking this up as a writer? Because, some writers obviously do go into what panel goes where. I'm not one of them. And the fact that you can watch guided view almost as like a storyboard, I
Yep.
feel like it really helps break it away from sometimes the really cool and really intentional interaction between panels. So I don't know,
like
I'm
it
very
for
like guided view.
Yeah, I like it for the kind of like Forrest Gump aspect of it, where you never know what you're going to get on the next panel. It's a whole new way of doing that whole page turner thing, where you're like, "What's going to happen now? I have no idea."
Have you read any
Um,
of Mark Waid's Thrillbent comics?
no,
Because those are
I,
designed like to be read online, so
yeah,
they're done panel by panel, and they actually do a lot of really unique things with the idea of the page turn or the reveal,
right.
the transition from panel to panel. They're actually, especially like if you ever get a chance to read, I think it's called Valentine by Alex DeCampi. She's one of the
Mhm.
first people to really push what a digital comic can be and how you can like really do things when you're doing that panel to panel thing that you couldn't do in a book. It's really
Right.
cool.
Awesome. Um, But Jason, I would suggest Turtles. You can get most of the trades on Comixology if you want the trade versions of it, so you don't have to buy the all. Have a multitude of the single issues. It's the current IDW Turtles line. The main Turtles line is an entire love letter to the entire franchise. It calls back to so many things. It puts in so many things. Um, just amazing. They just wrapped up the latest 4-issue miniseries where they actually did a damn good job of doing Turtles in Time in comic form, but it made sense for the story as to what's going on in the IDW Turtles verse. Um, so that was pretty awesome. I am getting a lot of static from you guys.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know who's. Sounds like somebody's blowing all over the place. There we go. All right, 5117. All right, kind of wrapping this thing up here. What do you guys have going on for work-related comic stuff, Mairghread, that
Well,
you can actually talk about?
exactly. Well, not as much as you'd think, because everything is
I,
secret.
yeah, I know.
No, well, Windblade is coming back in the new Combiner Wars, which we are hard at work on,
Mm,
firing on all cylinders. And actually, if this uh, interview comes out before next week, you can see us at New York Comic Con. Sarah, John, Livio, and me are
And
all going to be
Andrew, I
there.
think.
Oh yeah, and Andrew too. So we're doing that, and I'm really excited. I got a chance to write a short for Boom Studios' Bravest Warriors Paralyzed Horse, um, which is a short story about one of their characters who is a horse that becomes completely paralyzed because he gains awareness of the entirety of existence and is
uh,
sort of in a perpetual state of awe. Um, which is actually really cool. We've done some really neat things with that. And yeah, I'm working on an OGN right now. That's I can probably talk more about in 2015. That I'm very excited about. That's definitely it's nice to go back to something a little darker. And this is definitely probably one of the more messed up things that I've written. So very excited to put that out there. And then we have quite a few TV shows coming out, so that's always
yep,
fun.
Yeah, which
quite a
ones?
few.
What can you? Which ones can you talk about?
Gosh, I never really know. I mean, obviously I'm working on Transformers: Robots in Disguise, which I think they said is supposed to be out 2015. Um,
Mhm.
and then I did write an episode of Ultimate Spider-Man that hasn't come out yet. So, but I'm not sure when that's going to air. Everything
Yeah.
else, I'm not sure how much I want to broadcast it, but fun things.
since you mentioned the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, I have not been keeping up with that. I need to, but I've seen the advertisements since this is Monstober on Disney Channel. I've seen the advertisements of the first ever Disney Channel live-action crossover where the characters from Jessie are going to be on Ultimate Spider-Man. What do you think of that?
I mean, I was not involved in that. I didn't work on that episode. I'm just a gun for hire on that show. But
Right.
I mean, it's a really neat idea. Like, the idea of crossing over a live action TV series with an animated TV series, and I'd be really interested to hear. I'm kind of surprised just because live action works on a completely different timeline than an animation. So, I mean, but why not? Why not push things a little more?
And I'm sure, I would imagine Jesse has a larger viewing audience than Ultimate Spider-Man, so it's probably really good for Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah. I think if they had done the reverse and tried to do like a live action Ultimate Spider-Man shows up in Jessie, that would have been weirder.
Yeah, that would have been much weirder. That wouldn't have worked. All right, where can the good folks interact with you guys online, Jason?
Whoa, what about my work upcoming?
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got a series on Comixology right now called Father Robot. That's an all-ages comic series that I believe issue 2 is out and issue 3 is coming out soon. It's a 5-issue series.
And you're editing on that.
Yeah, I'm editing on that, and the 215 Inc. is releasing the issues, I believe, later this year. So, yeah. And then, where can they find you online, Mairghread?
Yes, well, we're hard at work on a new website right now that I should be working on right now. So, I don't know, how much lead time do I have until this actually airs?
This will go up, most likely, since it's a comic episode, it'll go up the 8th.
Okay, let's shoot for it then. You can find me at mscottwriter.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mairghread Scott and on Tumblr at mscottwrites.com. So.
There's mscottwrites.tumblr.com.
Oh, yes, sorry.
And then you can follow my monthly podcast, The Previews Party, which is part of fanboycomics.net, where we talk about upcoming comics.
I love Previews Party. They go through the Previews magazine and talk about like what is upcoming and what, they're thinking, what do they think about, things that you should be pre-ordering. If you don't have time to like wade through all of Previews, it's a really great segment.
Yeah. And then we do you can find my writing on Comics Beat. I do the monthly sales analysis articles. And then I'm on Twitter at Jason Enright. And I think my Tumblr is just jasonenright.tumblr.com. And and we're there to
If
chat.
you find one of us on Tumblr, you'll see the other one, because we're always blogging.
Yeah. All right, and the Windblade trade paperback is currently out. The link will be in the show notes to Jason's post on Tumblr on how you can get your copy of Windblade. I always love reading some of those posts that you put up for that for your Tumblr regarding how to get comics, because
it's our number one question. It is my number one question that people ask when I was pushing Windblade. I was always getting like, but how do you do it? And what if I live in the middle of nowhere? Blah 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 blah. Like,
I wish there wasn't such a barrier to entry on comics, but we try to make it as easy as possible for people to find these things.
Absolutely. I have no idea what's coming up next in the pull bag, honestly. No clue. My plans are all over the place. We may be talking about the first 2 volumes of John Layman's Chew. We may be talking about More Than Meets the Eye or Robots in Disguise 28 and 29. I have no idea what's coming up. All right, so I have been TFG1 Mike with
Mairghread Scott
and Jason Enright.
Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
Talk to you later.
What is this I sense? The taint of Primus?
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.